student pilot, just getting started, to obviously Don, who's A330 captain for Delta. Obviously, you guys know Bill. You know, he's got 16 or 17 years, I can't remember, with Delta, and I fly for UPS. And so between the three of us, we probably have, I don't know, maybe 80,000 hours between the three of us. But guess what? We are all student pilots, okay? We're just all student pilots in various degrees of learning or experience. And every time I go up and fly, obviously I learn something. And over the evolution since I bought the airport in 2002 with a couple other partners, and separated myself in 2009, and then Bill and I became partners in just the flight school and the airplanes. The training program here has evolved in that 14 years of flying, because I have learned things that my father didn't teach me when I was 17 years old, what the military has taught me, and what the airlines have taught me, and what mishaps have taught me, and our training program has evolved over what I think, obviously, all the instructors that work here, the number one priority is safety. It's near and dear to our hearts, and that's what we constantly emphasize and harp on, is how to make it as safe as possible. It's just like briefing engine failure on takeoff. I can guarantee you there's not a flight school in the United States that is part of their before takeoff brief, is engine failure on takeoff and where the diverts are and what altitude you're going to turn back around on. But it wasn't until I started flying with the airlines, my before engine failure on takeoff brief when I was in the military was arm in the seat and going zoom, stores, jettison, eject. That was engine failure on takeoff in the F-16. But it wasn't until, you know, in the airline industry, we brief engine failure on takeoff every time. And I started thinking about that. I go, why? You know, I know why we do it there, but we didn't do it here. And I started thinking about, you know, why don't we do that, you know, in a small airplane? Obviously, when the engine failures occur, they occur during throttle transients. When the throttle transients occur during the takeoff and landing phase of flight. How many statistical mishaps are there of knuckleheads that have engine failure and takeoff and try and do the turn back? As opposed to, hey, it's straight ahead, 90 left, 90 right, depending on what airplane you're in, 152 and 172, basically 1,000 feet, prior to 1,000 feet, it's straight ahead, 90 left, 90 right. After 1,000 feet, you can turn around, and the only thing that allows you is, with 1,000 feet, is to be able to turn around. It doesn't guarantee you to be able to land. It guarantees you to be able to safely turn around and reassess the same situation. Hey, can I make the airport? Crap, I'm not going to make it. I'm going into this field. Hey, I got the field made. So anyway, the bottom line is it's a continuous evolution of learning, and we're all student pilots, and that's the emphasis of what I was trying to make there. So anyway, we're going to cover just a couple of quick things because we're getting into winter ops, and then we're going to put Paul on the stand and talk about what happened to him. So those that are new, winter ops, we have all the airplanes have electrical engine block heaters in them. So when they're parked, they're normally obviously plugged in, and they have blankets over them. So if you're a licensed pilot coming to get an airplane, obviously, you know, you can get into the hangar. Everybody knows how to get in the hangar. Open the hangar, get the airplane, and fly it. And then when you put it back, even though it's hot, okay, obviously re-blanket it and also plug it back in. There'll be extension cords all over the place. Paul used to be really good about. Not that he's not good now, but you know, rolling everything up and putting it back in, you know, on the sides. But you know, grab the blankets, cover them up. It makes all the difference in the world. How many guys in the wintertime, go out and get in their car, crank it up, and go. So probably the majority of people, you know, I hope not just to warm up the cabin, or not the cabin, the car, so it's warm when you get in it if you don't keep it in the garage. But you're thinking about obviously the effects of cold soaking and your poor little engine, car engine out there, as far as you know, wear and tear on it. Well, same thing with obviously an engine. That is your lifeblood that's sitting out in front of you. And so, you know, the engine block heater takes the oil to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's it. That's what they're designed for. So it's warm, and if you take the blanket off and stick your hand obviously up in the engine, no matter what the temperature is outside, when it's been blanketed overnight and heated, you'll feel, you know, that it is warm. It's not hot, but it's warm. So it is preventing the cold soaking. And so, you know, just take a couple extra minutes before you go and cop power to take off. Yes, I know. Obviously, you know, if you start thinking about money, oh my God, 1/10, you know, is you know, $1.50 that I just spent and I was sitting on the ground. But it may be that extra $1.50 may be what, you know, keeps that engine running on takeoff, as opposed to you know, going out here doing that before takeoff, boom, boom, mag check's good, okay, let's go, boom, and push the power up. It's a huge strain, obviously, on the engine, and what's the most important thing in the engine is the main bearings for the crank, and getting those properly lubricated and getting oil to them, obviously, before you shove the power forward. So pulling the heater out and going, ooh, hey, I got a little heat, I'm good to go, is not necessarily, you know, what tells you about what's going on in the engine. It is telling you that the exhaust now is up to about 1,000 degrees coming off the engine, but maybe not necessarily what's inside the engine. So what do? I don't necessarily say, okay, it has to be in the green, because I know that it's at least 100 degrees because we have engine block heaters on it, in 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But you know, I'll look at the needle, and you know, it normally says oil pressure on there, and I'll just look at the needle and see that it's moved in relation to the O. And the other thing that I do is, in the before takeoff check stuff, I'll run it up to 1500 RPM instead of it being at 1000 for idle, just to generate more heat while I'm doing everything else, as far as that's concerned. And the other thing I want to, let me digress, is sometimes when it's really cold, they say to prime it and pull the prop through a couple of times, and then prime it again and pull the prop through a couple of times, and then get in the airplane and a couple shots of prime. Obviously you don't want to flood it, but, and then of course you need to make sure the master's off and the mags are off when you're pulling the prop through. Technique only, by the way. But anyway, so I've done that a few times. It's normally not so cold that I have to do that, but on a really cold morning, you know, I will pull the prop through and shoot a couple shots of prime in it, and then get in the airplane and then prime it again, and it'll generally start fairly easy. So anyway, those are some things, obviously, with winter ops. Do any of the instructors have anything to add in that regard before we move on? Okay. You got one right here?